Kia ora and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with New Zealand artists. I'm your host, Mandy Yarkich. These conversations are intimate, uplifting and insightful. The guests on the show have absolutely enriched my life, and I'm sure their stories will have the same effect on you. Thank you so much for joining me to listen to these amazing people speak about what drives them, the way they work, and their personal takes on life. Kia ora and a very warm welcome back to the Creative Matters podcast. This is episode 76. We are speaking with UK-born painter Neal Palmer. Neal immigrated to New Zealand in 1998 and has been painting full-time ever since. Through the exploration of the Aotearoa environment, he has discovered subjects that evoke strong emotional responses.
Focus down on particular subjects because they start to mean things to me. It's kind of, I'm working with these subjects all day, every day for years now. And I think it's a natural inclination for people to kind of build stories around the things that they do. So I got to a point where the different plants have actually started to mean different things to me. So it's like a language of symbols, I suppose.
He is inspired by the natural forms, composition, spaces and shapes, as well as nostalgic references his botanical subjects provide. Neal blends visual languages within his practice, exploring how the languages of colour, texture, pattern and abstract forms can inform and cross-reference each other. He likes to develop work that uses the illusion of a photographic depth of field to allow images to slip in and out of pictorialism and abstraction through shifting the viewer's conscious reactions to colour, composition and form. In this episode, we have a very lovely conversation about how Neal found himself in New Zealand and how his new environment informed his art practice so much. He shares his gilding and painting processes, and we talk about his latest artist residency and body of work created at Auckland Botanic Gardens. Amazingly, in the last 25 years of being a full-time artist, Neal has had 27 solo or joint shows. We talk about his solo exhibition Thorny Issues, which was created in response to the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns. I hope you enjoy this episode. I certainly enjoyed meeting Neal, and I'm sure you'll find it really interesting. Hi, Neal.
Hi.
Welcome to the Creative Matters podcast.
Thank you.
And welcome to Muriwai on a stormy, thundery day.
Yes. It's very beautiful.
So, Neal, you have had a very successful career as a full-time artist for the last 25 years.
Thank you.
And I'm very much looking forward to hearing all about your journey.
Oh, this might take a while.
Yeah. So were you actually quite a creative child?
Yeah, pretty much only interested in doing drawing and painting and sort of mucking around with models and things like that, like airfix models. And I just was more interested in that than anything else, really. Not sporty, not particularly interested in sort of anything other than drawing. I was brought up in London, in northwest London. I was born in Enfield, Edmonton, and I grew up in Harrow, which is it's a interesting part of London to live in. There's half an hour on the metro gets you into the centre of London and one way, and half an hour on the metro the other way gets you into the green fields and green belt of the London area, which is that, and I loved both of those things, especially when I became a sort of teenager and going out and going into clubs in London, and then I'd spend some time there, and then I'd go walking in the fields and woods in the other direction just as happily. So.
Yeah, which is a great balance.
Yeah.
And you were doing art at high school, I presume?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was one of those kids that just was only interested in doing the drawing and things, and Mum and Dad picked up on that fairly early on, so they encouraged me. And at school I took painting and drawing and ceramics, pottery. So I was actually lucky. The school I went to was just a normal sort of London comprehensive school, like not a grammar school or anything, but they took arts quite seriously, which I think is possibly not that common. But they had 6 dedicated subjects in the school. So they had sculpture and ceramics, painting and drawing, textiles and graphics.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was good to be in that environment, and all of the teachers were really great and very encouraging. And so that's the path I decided to choose. I would spend all my lunch breaks and things in that art department. So,
as many artists did. And were you thinking at that point that you would like to study fine art and you wanted to be an artist?
Yeah, I probably didn't really know what fine art was at that stage. I wasn't really exposed to it as a child as such, but my parents were into local arts and crafts, and we used to go to Amdram stuff and that sort of side of the art world, sort of a little bit more local.
And how did you get that introduction? You went to Trent University to study fine art, and how did that happen? Yeah,
well, it's just that progression of school. I did art and ceramics up to A level, just wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I went and did a foundation at the local art school, and then I made the choice. You decide what you want to do, and I chose fine art because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, and I wanted something that would open me up in as many different directions as was possible. So I didn't want to focus down on graphics or illustration or any of those sorts of more specific courses. So I chose fine art, and I wanted to get away from London. So I looked at colleges outside London, and Nottingham appealed, and it's a great course. It was quite difficult to get into. It's 4 applicants for every place, so I was very lucky to get in.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well done. And you did all sorts of different things at art school, didn't you? Sculpture and installation.
Yeah, well, being brought up doing that sort of 3-dimensional ceramic stuff and the 2-dimensional sort of painting and drawing, I'd had an interest in both from an early age, and I carried that on at art school. I actually, to get into the art school, I used my mum's van. That she owned a shop, so I had access to the van that she used to go and pick up stock with. So that was quite handy, and I filled it with sculptures and paintings. And I drove up to the art school interview session and got all of the panel, interview panel, come out to the car park, and got them to help me unload all this stuff into the car park. And we were talking about it. And I think that's possibly what got me into art school.
That's brilliant. And that's stuff that you'd made
previously. On my foundation course. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's a very good technique. Good to
Get them involved.
Yeah, totally. They would have loved that. And then you tell us a little bit about your time at art school.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a shock, I think, coming from my background and the sort of what I had thought about art and what I thought art was. That fine art environment was a bit of a shock, and it was at that time, that was the late 80s, 87 I started, and it's conceptual art was very important, installation stuff. So I'd come from a more crafty kind of background, and so I struggled with those things, but the idea being important was something that I sort of finally grappled with, and that's what art schools kind of were about then, is getting you to focus down on the idea, and they weren't anti-materials, so it was just a way, figuring out how to play with these materials to get to sort of express those ideas. So I started in the art, in the painting and drawing just as the beginning, and then they would do projects. We had to do performance and photography and film, and we just went through different projects doing that. So I sort of experimented with that stuff, and I kind of found that I really like process. So I ended up in the printmaking department for the second year, because etching and lithography and all those things, I really liked going through a process to create an image. But towards the end of the second year, I started to really explore the ideas that I wanted to mix up mediums a little bit more. I really like painting and sculpture, and I was trying to figure out a way of incorporating both of them. I'd done a bit of playing around talking about those sculptures that I was talking about earlier that I brought up were basically road signs that I'd put together with trees and things, sort of. So it's that idea of urbanism and organic sort of plant life that would sort of just smash them together. And I wanted to explore that more, but it was kind of going through various different processes at art school to get to that place. My final year was actually ended up being an installation. I wanted people to be able to sort of feel like they were walking into a painting. So it was like a three-dimensional painting, and it was a complete room that was immersive. So I just created this entire environment. It was kind of wacky.
Wow. And was it sort of flora-based?
No, I got really into puppets and things and political satire. So my dissertation for that year was the history of political satirical puppetry. Like it goes from Commedia dell'arte in Italia and Punch and Judy, and then Spitting Image. And I wrote my dissertation on Spitting Image.
Wow.
The result was a sort of like a Alice in Wonderland sort of kind of idea of these weird sort of furniture. So it was like a room that you walked into that had all these strange kind of furniture things. So it's not a lot like what I was doing, but it had a very organic kind of feel. And then these paintings on the wall. So it's like the paintings merged into the sculptures, and it was all kind of together. So it was just wanting to be creative. And that's what I got out of art school. It was a chance to just explore and experiment and to just do the things I wanted to do without thinking about anything else.
Which is so empowering, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know that's kind of what I was doing. I just did it.
Yeah.
I ended up the thesis on political puppetry came in handy. So I was really keen to work for those people. I was really interested in that whole idea of using puppets as political satire, and it was an amazing show. We all loved it as kids. So the idea of working on it was like a dream come true. So I got the opportunity to go into I was started in the audio area just as a runner for the audio sessions. So I met all the like Steve Coogan and all those guys. They were amazing people. So, and then I found out there was a job going in the workshop area, which is what I wanted. So I applied for that, and I took all of my work that I'd done from art school and my dissertation on puppetry and stuff, and I met Roger Law, the guy one of the pair that invented Spitting Image, and I showed him all my work. He went, "Yeah, I don't really see anything that's interesting, but you're obviously passionate, so yeah, you can have a job."
Really?
I was like, "Oh, wow,
how great!
This is amazing." So I was there a couple of years, and I got to the lofty heights of puppet coordinator, plus a few sort of side projects as an art director. So it was really fun times. It was hard work.
And were you actually making the puppets?
As a puppet coordinator, you're responsible for making sure the puppets arrived on set in the way that they're supposed to be, in the costumes that they are assigned for that whatever shoot that they're in. So that was my job. So I a little bit of tootling and making sure they look good, and you know, the puppeteers were quite hard on them, so there was a lot of repairing going on during the shoot. So and you know, if things got hard in the workshop, I would jump in and do painting and things. But I wouldn't do any of the caricaturing because that was a very specialist, kind of quite an important part of the whole creative process that I was a bit low to get involved in. But
And your wife, or the person who ended up being your wife, worked for Spitting Image as well.
She did.
She's a big reason why you ended up coming to New Zealand.
She is, yeah. We started at Spitting Image at about the same time, and we ended up working on a few projects together and fell in love. And it took us a while to kind of completely fall in love, but we did. And at that point, she'd already decided to come home to her home to New Zealand, and I didn't know about this at this stage. So she finally sort of said to me, "I'm actually going home in 2 weeks. Do you want to come?"
Wow.
I thought, oh yeah, I've always wanted to go to New Zealand.
Really? And you did?
So I came here, the Christmas 1992, we first came.
Wow. That's nearly more than 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're basically a Kiwi.
Yeah, actually, last year or the year before, I think, I finally tipped over into having spent more years in New Zealand than I had spent in the UK. So I think that makes me more New Zealand than English.
Yeah, you qualify. Just. Oh, that's exciting. Well, we're very glad to have you here. And then you came here, and were you expecting then to become a full-time artist, or what was your plan?
No, I tried to get it back. I tried to carry on in the film industry and worked on a few projects, but I found it quite difficult to get in. There was a lot of because a lot of people wanted to get into that industry, so there was a lot of doing things for nothing, and the industry kind of gets away with dangling in the carrot in front of you, saying this could be the start of your career over here, and you'd end up doing things for nothing. And it was sort of unsustainable for a while. I worked on a few good things. We actually lived in a warehouse space on the K Road with Lisa Rehana.
Oh, amazing.
And actually worked on a project with her for a political broadcast for the McGillicuddy Serious Party, which was a lot of fun.
I remember that party. Oh my God, that's a long time ago.
So that was like an animation sort of. So Lisa was doing a lot of sort of stop motion animation at the time. And the work that I do now basically generate from ideas that I was having when I was walking around the tracks, Waitakere ranges, and just really interested in the forms because of that. My interest in sculpture and painting and bringing them together, the form of New Zealand botanics is the thing that I'm actually most interested in. So but then Ange got pregnant at Piha, so we like to sort of joke that our son's a Westie.
Very good. I approve.
And I think he'd be quite pleased to be called a Westie too.
I hope so.
But because we were about to have a baby, and that's quite a major thing that was our first baby, and I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted to leave London. So we went back to the UK and to spend time with my family. And so our son was 5 months old when we decided to go back there. And I ended up getting quite a good job there because I still had good contacts in London in the film industry. So I ended up having this really great job working on this spin-off for the Changing Rooms team, which was like renovating sort of furniture and that sort of wacky sort of fun English designer way. And we travelled all over the country, which was amazing actually. But Ange wasn't really that keen on bringing up a child in London. And when I came home, we realised that London wasn't where we wanted to be. So we packed everything up in 1998 and came back to New Zealand. And that's basically when we decided, this is it, we're here.
Had you had your second child by then?
Pregnant with second child, yeah.
Right. And then at that point, were you thinking, I'd like to commit to a full-time art practice?
Yeah. When I came back, I realised I didn't want to continue working 14-hour days in film and TV industry, and that I really wanted to get back into my own work. It'd been 10 years since I'd basically followed ideas that I'd had at art school. So, and the work that I'd done, the image gathering and the ideas that I'd been having at Piha to create works that reflected New Zealand specifically. It was kind of a way of me acclimatizing to New Zealand because we'd come back without finally decided that we were going to spend our lives here. And it was my way of was my way of kind of finding my place in New Zealand. So looking at these forms and using them as inspiration to create the work that I was creating. At that time, I was still quite interested in the juxtaposition, I hate that word, but the juxtaposition of urban and graphic imagery and organic and natural forms. It's kind of goes sort of back to that time in my childhood, halfway between organic green fields and urbanization. So that was the work that I was doing. So I'd use these forms and I'd focus down on the shapes of things that I found interesting in the plants, like the strata of a nikau trunk and the way that leaves weave in and out of each other in the Harakeke plant. Things like that. They're the things that I found interesting about it because they're strong forms. They're much more interesting to me than the forms of New Zealand, of English countryside. I don't know why that was the case.
In between.
Yeah. So I was putting those forms and I put a grid over the top of graphic shapes, triangles and lines and things like that. It was kind of like trying to figure out the flatness of the painting and the ideas that a painting can only be a flat surface, but and then there's the illusional space of traditional painting where you're making space within a frame that is which is, you know, it looks real. There's space there, but it's not real. It's kind of that really like that. There's something really interesting about that
tension.
Yeah, the tension between those two things. So the works were pretty blatant, basically black and silver triangles and things over the top of these other images that were quite close and would be sort of quite abstract. In some of the panels, quite abstract, some of them quite pictorial. And that's what I was playing with.
And were you working with gilding at all at that point? Or was
I really loved light is something that painters, it's basically all you're kind of playing with, is you're playing with light, with pigments and layers and the way that the light comes back through those layers of pigment. And so it's the silver was about creating that really flat surface, just pure reflection, basically. This more so with silver, and I've kind of focused on silver over the years because it reflects the colours that are around it, and it is a representation of the flatness of the surface of the actual object, the painting. So yeah, so that's kind of what I was playing with, and I played around with that for quite a few years. I had, that first show was successful at things, and through that show I got invited to show at the Studio of Contemporary Art in Newmarket. Joy Tung, she was amazing. She was very encouraging, and I put on a show in 2002 or 1, I can't remember, but it was like 30 works that I'd been working with, and she basically sold all of them before I'd even got there on the opening night.
Wow.
She was incredible, and through that work I got an article in the Herald on Sunday. No, Arts on Monday. That's what it was, and that kind of basically kicked my career off. That article and that exhibition, and haven't really sort of looked back, I suppose, since then.
Yeah, you've been very successful for 25 years, which is amazing, and will be really inspirational to sort of hear about how you actually maintained that success, I mean, that's the hard part. So just looking back on your website as we talk, your website is great because it goes all the way back to 2002.
Yeah.
Which is really great for someone like me trying to research before we have a podcast, because there's so much information and so much material and sort of showing your journey, which I know you're really interested in that whole journey idea. So the work at the beginning was a bit more sort of symmetrical, wasn't it?
Yeah, playing around with that geometric ideas. And I mean, I've always loved geometric abstraction. When I first came to New Zealand, my favourite artist was Gordon Waters. I just loved his work, and that koru thing kind of really appealed to me just because of what I was interested in looking at, the forms, natural forms, and distilling them down to that one shape was pretty incredible. But I mean, I've actually got really eclectic tastes in art, and I love all sorts of different things. It's one of the great pleasures in my life is going and looking at other people's work.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure, isn't it? And so it looks like from your website, from just sort of 2007, you sort of moved slightly away from the geometric abstraction.
I started to feel like it was an interruption. The graphic stuff, it was in front, and I loved that you could look at both things, but you kind of had to look at them independently. So you'd look at the geometric stuff, or you'd look at the organic stuff, and flipping your eye backwards and forwards. I really loved that whole thing, but then I got to the point where I thought I don't actually want to do that anymore, because it was a few years that I was doing that stuff for, and it got to the point where I turned the geometric lines, so they became thin silver lines instead. So it was like more like looking through a fence, and I eventually got to the point where I thought, well, I'm really interested in those shapes, and all of the plants and things that I'm looking at have got those shapes in them. So I started playing around with composition a lot more. So the compositions were reflecting those shapes rather than putting the shapes on top of sort of flat textures and shapes like that. So I kind of buried those strong forms in underneath in a way. I'm not sure if people can see that, but that's kind of what I was trying to do. So the overall images became more formal and less about textures. Yeah, and I lost that. I lost those geometric shapes over the top. Yeah, so that's that's what I started playing with. So it's gonna, because I'm interested in sculpture. That was what I was kind of looking at. So the paintings are trying to kind of hint towards more sculptural form. I can
see that. But I think even now your paintings have that sort of nod to a sculptural element.
Yeah.
They do feel quite sculptural, even though they're not.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, I quite like that, mixing genres.
And you're really interested in that depth of field and, creating space behind form and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that goes back to sort of being interested in the languages of the different processes that I'm using. So all of my work starts from a photographic place. So it's kind of the ideas and things that I'm working from at any one stage come from being out in the world and taking photographs. So I think through a camera lens quite a bit, if that makes any sense. So it's my way of kind of generating ideas, and I'm interested in the language of photography. I'm not a particularly good photographer. I take a hell of a lot of photographs and focus, and then edit through all of those and sort of kind of play around with ideas in the computer. But the things like depth of field and like lens flare and composition and cropping and composition bleeding off the edges and all those things that you think about when you're taking a photograph are quite a big part of the process of me developing each particular work and the painting. So it's kind of it's like an editing process that goes from sort of walking and journeying in the real space to taking photographs and then looking at those on a computer screen. And digital photography was amazing, by the way. It's kind of it changed my entire process.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because it was very expensive to do this process when it was still film and stuff. But anyway, so I became even more interested in photography in that way. And then and I don't have a particularly good camera or anything, so it's all sort of reference quality. So I've never actually created finished works that are photographs. I think I've done it once actually, but and so from that point, I tend to, from the point of looking at them on screen and working my way through images and seeing what I like about different images, and which tends to involve sort of cropping down and looking at the forms, as we were talking about. And then I actually I like to print them out. So I've got a really great printer at home, and I print out various size images. And then I play with those manually as well, cropping with little bits of white, L-shaped pieces of paper, and kind of working through ideas in that way. And when I'm doing that, I'm thinking about the images in a more painterly way, and how all of those things that I'm interested in photographically translate into what I want to do with paint. So it's kind of trying to use both languages to kind of come up with images.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I hope so.
Yeah, totally. And there's so many things we can talk about here, but can we just go back to the gilding? Has that actually gone throughout your practice right up till now, or has that sort of come and gone?
It's come and gone a little bit, but I have major sort of years where I get really into it. I'm actually in a really big gilding phase at the moment. Just about everything that I've done in the last few years has got gilding in it, one way or another. It's quite a good way of cutting out stuff that I don't want, extraneous details that I'm not interested in. So I kind of, and going back to photography and the way that light shines through the things like Neal palms. I'm just looking out the window now, thinking there's really lovely little sort of points of light coming through those Neal leaves, and instead of putting in a sort of fluffy blue sky with clouds, I just cut all that out and use silver, which actually is more close to real life in the way that light's bouncing back through those spaces than it would be if it was a sky in my mind. It's kind of, so it's not real. It's still talking about the surface of the painting, but it's actually feels more real when you're looking at the images that I create, the paintings that I create. It feels like there's light coming back through the...
That's right, yeah. You can see it's silver leaf, but it still feels quite organic.
Yeah.
Which is really beautiful, and then creates that lovely depth and reflection.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm after, yeah.
And then it just accentuates the shapes in between the form. Which is
everything's about sort of focusing down on the forms.
And is that, it is something that people would kind of recognise as a Neal Palmer work with the silver leaf. It's become a little bit of a signature.
It has.
Yeah, which is a good thing. And I don't know if anyone else is actually copying you at the moment.
At the moment.
Who knows in the future? It's quite a unique process. Yeah, there could be a bit of that too. So I'd love to know how you actually work on a painting that has the gilding behind. So do you create the form in front and paint that, or can you tell us about that process? There's
a little bit of toing and froing on that level. So when I've got the thing that I want to create and photographically, then I'll draw it up onto the scale that I want to do, which has been quite big quite recently. But I really love tiny works as well, so I like playing with scale. But the process is I draw, and then I tend to work in black and white for the under layers. So I'm building up the forms with chiaroscuro, sort of light and dark, and the shading and stuff, and then I start adding color in glazes. So which goes back to when I was doing those murals, the Renaissance murals. It's all about building up depth through transparent layers of paint. So, which is also a photographic reference, because that's how photographs are printed. It's using transparent layers of pigment. So it's all kind of relates to that, and it's all very process sort of orientated. But then, so I get to the point where I've got an image that it's maybe 3/4 to the end of what I'm wanting to do, and then I'll gild in the silver, which is a process of using size, which is basically a glue, and then you paint everywhere just using brushes where you want the silver to be.
And can you paint the whole painting with the glue, or does it dry? Do you have to do it in stages?
I use a product that I learnt that I was taught to use in Australia, which is a latex-based glue. So you paint it on, and it goes sticky, and it stays sticky forever. So you don't have that, because with water gilding and with oil size, you only have a limited time to put the silver on, to put the gold and silver on. So with this product that I use, I can spend days putting the gilding, the glue onto the work,
and so good.
So and then I put the silver on, and I think there's little videos of me sort of rubbing the silver back. So basically, the silver only sticks to the glue with any luck. Sometimes sticks to the paint, which is really annoying.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then you brush it off with this really super soft brush.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that process.
Yeah, it's really satisfying, and
it's such a delicate thing, isn't it?
It's very filmatic too, because it's quite quick.
Yeah.
I don't bother filming me putting the glue on, because that takes days.
I can imagine.
And then you put on all the leaves at once, and then you brush it all back. It's quite pretty, with the floating silver.
Yeah, I have seen the film. I think it must have been on your Instagram, perhaps, at some
I keep
stage.
filming myself doing it still. And then I carry on painting, basically. So the gilding's quite it's got a broken edge and stuff. It's because it's fairly organic kind of process. I tidy up the edges and where I need more paint, and then I finish the work. So that's so it sort of, it doesn't go in at the end, but it's close to the end,
which would be so satisfying. It'd be fun getting to that point, I imagine. And so you can actually paint over the little extra bits of silver.
Yeah, you can paint over it. I've tried actually using it as a background, and then painting an image over the top of a sheet of silver, but there's too much light coming back through. It's actually it's not as effective as the other process I just explained.
That's really interesting, the black and white, starting with black and white. So all the shapes and forms are in black.
Yeah, just create them in shadows and then build up colour. I mean, it's not exclusive. I mean, there's a lot of toing and froing. And
it's really cool. And sometimes you do have quite often you have quite a dark background as well, which is quite a contrast to the silver. Yeah,
I like playing around with mood. So there's some a much more sort of dark, moody kind of feels, and others are fairly sort of light and sort of celebrating the lighter things in nature. I like playing around with different, the variety of scales and the variety of moods and things like that, to sort of create works that feel and talk about different aspects of the way we feel about nature.
You obviously do take a lot of the New Zealand flora, so we've got the Harakeke, New Zealand flax, Purakawa, you're quite interested in, especially the leaves. I love those red leaves.
I love those red leaves.
They're amazing.
I'm constantly picking up red leaves.
They're so beautiful. And what I love most about Purakawa at Christmas time is the red carpet in the gutters. We have that at Muriwai. It's just like a red carpet going down the gutters of the roads.
Yeah, I've got lots of photos of that.
I love that. And kōwhai and other things like that. So what is it, do you think, about the Harakeke in particular?
I focus down on particular subjects because they start to mean things to me. It's kind of, I'm working with these subjects all day, every day for years now. And I think it's a natural inclination for people to kind of build stories around the things that they do. So I got to a point where the different plants have actually started to mean different things to me. So it's like a language of symbols, I suppose. And Harakeke has become about the choices that we make in life. The way that the leaves weave in and out of each other is like people's lives weaving in and out of each other, and that the ones underneath are supporting the leaves on top, and all of those sorts of things. So you kind of imbue these things with meaning.
Yeah. I love that. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and different things have come to mean different things. Like the Pahutakawa leaves, those little black spots on the leaves are actually created by a beetle that lives in most Pahutakawa trees. Have got these beetles. And there's a sort of a symbiotic relationship, because the beetles keep away pests that would harm the tree, and the beetles that create the black spots don't harm the tree, just create the black spot. So there's not much sacrifice that the tree has to make.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Rudy the Bugman told me that in a speech. Right? I was in a show in the Rotorua Museum, which was dedicated to Putikawa, and he spoke about that.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So, and then they often have little sort of bite marks.
Yeah, no. Well, what's
that?
They're things eating the leaves. They're the things that the little beetles that create the black spots are probably trying to keep away. But
right.
Maybe not entirely. But so the meaning of those leaves and things is about that relationship. But it's all about the cycle of life. So the red leaves are when the tree is basically getting rid of toxins, and then they drop to the ground, which creates the red. So it's about that cycle. So that's what those paintings mean to me. They're about the way nature recycles and just reforms and that constant recycling, which is what we all need to learn to do a bit more of that.
We do. And I guess you sort of become really quite attached to these plants.
Yeah.
I can imagine the sort of real connection.
Yeah, we've got lots of flax in our garden,
which
isn't very big. Well, most people say, "Oh, I've just ripped a whole bunch of that,
really,
of that out." Well, you should be planting it, not ripping it out.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an incredible plant. Yeah, and it does create amazing sort of shapes in between the forms.
And that variety of, I've got 7,000 photographs of just Harakeke leaves. It's a lot of variety.
Yeah.
It's endless.
It is endless. It's amazing. It's inspired some of my work too, actually. Oh. And then you've also sort of gone to things like magnolia, which is also probably a bit of a well-known image or form of Neal Palmer.
Yes.
So how do we get to the magnolias?
Well, it's about the same. It's about the same stuff that the natives came to me, which were about me finding my place in New Zealand. The magnolias, apart from being amazing looking plants, and I really love the way that in the Asian varieties have their flowers come out before the leaves. So you've got those lattice work, the sort of geometric forms of the branches, and then these amazing floral blooms sort of spotted around. So I play around with that, and so that appeals to me artistically, that image. But the magnolias themselves are a symbol of the successful migration of people and cultures and integration, because I believe that multiculturalism is a positive thing, not a negative thing. So they're like a symbol of the positive side of people exchanging ideas, moving to different countries, like myself coming here, is putting down roots and being part of a society, but still having your own cultural identity and things like that. So it's trying to be a positive thing. It's not anything to do with colonialism or the negative side of that, which was the Europeans coming and wrecking the place. Basically, it's kind of people being tolerant of each other. It's a really positive thing, and that's something I find that's important to me.
And if we talk about your actual painting process, I know you're very interested in the idea of making marks and sort of building up a painting with that in mind.
It is just mark making. It's just having fun with paint. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, so I've kind of worked out little techniques that I use using various things like sponges and, toothbrushes to flick things and all sorts of different things that are kind of interesting ways of putting on paint and pushing paint around. And, I actually went through a phase of making little sort of rubber tools and from textures in trees and things, so that I would have like a pad of texture and using that to kind of push around and things like the frottage pieces and working with the bark rubbings and then using those sorts of, so it's kind of playing around with all sorts of ways of pushing paint around, which is basically the painterly side. So it's kind of really interested in.
And that goes back to your printmaking interest, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. just different ways of putting down. Yeah, I loved etching. That was my favourite printmaking process.
I love that process.
Yeah, I haven't done it since art school, which is something I should address, I think.
You should. I mean, your work would be beautiful as etchings.
Yeah, it would. Time.
Yeah, that's the problem.
The mark making side of it is really important to the overall process. I mean, all of the sort of the processes before I get to that place are kind of stepping stones to get to mark making. So that is what the work is about, essentially. It's just that. I mean, I think there's a quality that exists in the ways that people mark make. I mean, and lots of artists do amazing things with paint. They're really cool. I love Judy Miller and the way that she sort of pushes paint around, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, very gorgeous.
So I probably, of all the things the languages that I play with, the painting is the thing that is most interesting to me.
And do you use acrylics or oils?
I use both, not together very often, but I have done, but mainly acrylics, because I love the speed of building up the acrylic layers quickly. So I can put down several layers a day, which is kind of important to me because, again, time thing. It's kind of, if I was working in oils, that I'm a bit impatient, that process, and I end up quite often getting into muddy messes and thinking, oh, should have just waited another day.
Yeah. And what are your favourite products?
I use Liquitex a lot. They're great. I mean, all of the artist quality paints have got the same pigments basically. I find it hard to tell the difference between Golden and Schminke and Liquitex, and even Atelier is quite good too. That Australian brand. I use them all, and all of them have various colours that I like. And they have various variations. I love like green gold, and the variations between the Liquitex green gold and the golden one and the Atelier one. They're all quite different. So I tend to buy them all.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And I mix colours. I very rarely use a colour straight out of the tube. So it's all about, and I tend to look at the pigment descriptions on paints. So I don't tend to buy paints that have got a mixture of pigments because it's a bit of a waste. So I buy the ones that are pure pigment numbers, and then mix my own colours from those ones.
And how do you mix? What do you mix on?
Cardboard pallets that tomatoes come in.
Really?
Because they're quite. I mix up quite sloppy mix because it's glazes, so there's a bit of liquidity to it. So I need something with a bit of an edge, otherwise it flows off the side of the board.
And you're using mediums.
Yeah, I use mediums. Yeah, I use all sorts of mediums.
Yeah.
Just keep playing around with those.
So good. It's quite fascinating hearing people's preferred products. I don't often ask that question, actually. And then onto your Thorny Issues, which was your work that you were producing in 2020. That is kind of different. I mean, you've got the same sort of form and, thinking about space and that kind of thing. But it's quite a different feeling to some of the other organic works. It
was a different kind of feeling, yeah.
Yeah, spiky.
It was definitely a spiky year. A very thorny year.
Well, 2020, yes. It definitely was the beginning of COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beginning, March. I think we went into the lockdown for the first time.
So that exhibition you created over that time, was it all thorny, spiky things?
It was pretty much all thorny, spiky things. I love spiky things.
And it was responding to
it was like it's like those little stories that you tell yourselves. That was my story about that year. It was a prickly year, and I love rose thorns. I love the whole symbolism of roses. I mean, there's an established symbolism of roses, that beauty, and thorny thing going on, which is, love can be tricky and stuff like that.
It's
I
that
love
tension
that.
again.
Yeah, so it seemed apt to explore that more. So I did. There was a whole wall of all sorts of different shape and size rose thorns, just focusing on that. It was kind of like a barcode sort of thing that went on the walls, which was kind of cool. And part of that interest in the graphic form, so focusing down on just the lines of the stems. And I thought that I was pleased with that show. Actually, it was a good show.
It's amazing work.
But yeah, the civil story, and I kind of tipped into right back to art school where I was looking at sort of fairy tale stuff, and so I kind of introduced that into my thinking. So it was, the thorn barriers that the prince has to hack through to get to Sleeping Beauty stuff. And I kind of looked into that, and there was some kind of disturbing tales that, from the 1700s that kind of, there was a bit of a relation to the spikiness of pandemic years, kind of. And sort of, I don't know. That's what I was thinking anyway.
That's really interesting. And that work, is the process the same? Obviously it's a little bit more constructed.
Yeah.
So do you actually find the thorny stems and place them and photograph them, or how do you work that?
Well,
you cut up.
Same sort of process as the other. So it's just playing around with the forms. So I'm constantly taking photos of all sorts of things, and places like the Botanic Gardens are an amazing resource for that sort of thing. They've got a great rose collection out there, and I often go to places like that, Parnell Rose Gardens, and sort of just spend time and relax down, and then sort of work out what is interesting, and spend quite a lot of time kind of just looking at really small things and photographing them. And so it built up from that. So I tend to have a collection of things that I'm working on, and like that generates the idea, and then I go and take more photographs of that thing. So it's sort of the idea generates, and then I go and focus down on that even more with the camera, and then that's kind of how it kind of unfolds.
And how do you approach colour?
I love colour. I think it's an emotional thing. I'm not sure you can really sort of think about that. It's colours, and the way that you think one colour looks good next to another is very personal. Colour theory and stuff. I often do green and red together, and sort of so that there's a like a pointillist theory of colour where you create a feeling of something by opposite and complementary patches of colour. So I use that.
You think about that while you're working?
I do think about you think about all of these. It's all it's a craft.
Yeah, totally. You have had so many exhibitions, like basically at least 30, one a year.
I think 20. I think it's 29.
Yeah,
might be.
I
talking to Fernanda about celebrating my 30th.
Yeah, I think you should. That's so many exhibitions, and they're solo exhibitions and group exhibitions.
Solo, apart from 2 or 3, which are like joint shows. Yeah, I think I did one with Sam Foley at White Space. I recently did one with John Parker at Muse Gallery, which was really lovely, actually. That was a magnolia show, talking about all those things I was talking about magnolias. But John actually created a bunch of his works responding to the colours and shapes in my work, which was a bit of a privilege. I loved that show.
You need to talk to John to come on the podcast.
Oh, do you want to?
I love that. Oh my goodness,
he's very good, actually.
I love his work.
He rescued me on my speaking.
Really?
on that opening night. So it was great.
Oh, that's good. It's a lovely joint show. I guess for joint shows, you need to get that right kind of connection between the works. But that's so many exhibitions. So tell us, how do you do that?
Oh, I don't know. One foot in front of the other, basically. It's kind of, I want to do this. And someone says, do you want to have a show? And I go, yes. And then I go, oh, shit, I've got a show.
Yeah, but it makes you work, doesn't it? Keeps you
deadline
honest.
is essential. Yeah. I need a deadline. It's probably why I say yes to things.
But you are quite prolific. You paint. You must paint a lot, and you produce a lot of paintings.
Yeah, well, I work every day pretty much. I mean, people say, "Oh, it's like a passion," but it's more than that. It's what I do. It's basically all I do. It's kind of paint pictures.
It's a good job.
Yeah,
good job to have.
And it is a job. I mean, some people don't like to think of it as a job, but I do think of it as a job. It's a profession.
It is, and it should be taken seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah. And do you ever have days where you aren't into it and not enjoying it?
There are not very often, but I've got processes that I can go back to, like making boards or gessoing things. And there are days where you get into the studio and you do your layers and work out what you want, and you look at them at the end of the day and think, I would have been better off not doing anything today. But they don't happen very often. It's kind of like, so it is quite hard. I get tired. Painting is, there's a lot of thinking. It's quite mentally draining. I think I can do about 5 hours and before I start to get tired.
And your eyes get tired too. Yeah, especially 50-something eyes.
Yes, exactly.
Something happens to eyes when you turn 50.
I need a new pair of glasses.
I can only say that to you because I am also in that decade and I understand. So back to the galleries. Do you have, a few galleries that you're represented by?
Currently, they've changed a bit over the years. I've worked with a few galleries and things, you work with them for 10 years and then things happen and you stop working with them, but all the galleries stop showing, or there's a bit of movement on that level, and finding the right relationships is essential. It's really, you haven't got a career without that. So I work with Fernanda in Auckland, Muse Gallery in Havelock North. At the moment, they're the only two that I'm actually working with, but I was working with the Vivian for a while, which was great, and Ilford down in Queenstown, which was good for the time that I showed down there. And I'm hoping, I really like a gallery in Christchurch actually, so you start talking to some people about that.
Well, put it out there. Hashtag Christchurch galleries.
Well, there's a great botanical gardens down there, which is that, and it's the garden city, so you'd think it would be a good place.
Yes, it really would be. You need a residency down there.
Well, exactly. That would be good.
Yes. So that brings us on nicely to talking about your last residency, which was 2022, and that was at Auckland Botanic Gardens. Can you tell us about that residency and also how you got it?
Yeah, so I started that in December 2022 and was there painting until the end of February, and the exhibition carried on until the end of March. So I've only just taken that down, really. But it's a sort of an invitation residency. The Friends of the Botanic Gardens have been running the residency for 16 years. They do it alternate years to the sculpture in the Gardens show that Richard Matheson was curating for quite a few years, and so they've had some pretty good artists like Christine Javier and Claudia Pontili, and there's been Sally Tagg. It's a great place to be for people like us who are botanical. Botanical artists, basically.
So you're at the Botanic Gardens as the resident artist.
Yeah.
So you have a studio and a place to show, and then a place to inspire.
Yeah. The way that it was basically what happened was Richard Matheson I know through Eden Arts Trust, and he runs the sculpture. In the Gardens show, or used to. He stopped doing it actually in the last couple of years. But he just took me aside and said, you should really apply for this residency. It's perfect for you. So I approached Liz Powell, who was the president of the Friends at that stage, and she said that she'd be interested. So I did a presentation to the board. I took a whole bunch of paintings and I did a video presentation of what I was doing and what I wanted to do there. And at the end of the presentation, Jack Hobbs, the guy who runs the Botanic Garden, said, "Well, I think he'll be great."
Really?
Why don't we would you like to do it? I went, "Yes, please."
Fantastic.
So that was great. And then I, a few months working out what I wanted to do out there. So what I want to do, and the residency for the Friends is actually January, February, so it's a 2-month residency. And in that meeting were the visitor centre manager and the education workshop sort of organising manager were there, and they said, "Well, actually, would you like to extend it a bit, go either side of January, February, so December and March, and put together a show that we can show your work?" So that was okay, yeah, great,
Yeah,
that's fantastic,
amazing.
So basically December, I turned up with all of the work that I managed to get together to put on. It's basically a sort of retrospective. So the earlier shows were paintings were from 2004, and I also had a couple of the thorn works that I'd put in the last show, 2022, and so I had that show up, and then I created a little studio at the front of the gallery space, and started working on that project that I proposed to the gardens, which was about sort of having a little journey in the gardens themselves. And so I plotted a path that sort of took in the areas that I was interested in looking at. So I started in the flax area, in the Harakeke pa, and then through the native trees, past the centre, back through the conifers, and into the cactus rock garden, which I stayed in for quite a while. I loved this. The cactus were great, and then through the Children's Potter Park, which has got a really great collection of Nikau actually. So I did about that, and then the roses, and then the palms, which is also a really lovely area in the gardens. The palm area was basically one of my favourites. I had planned to get a bit further, but I ran out of time, so I got stuck in the palms a bit. But so amazing place to sort of be. So what I did was I went and bought a ream of A2 cartridge paper, and using that process of the photographs, walking photographs, sort of editing down, sort of distilling images and trying to sort of create an image, a response to the gardens and that particular journey. So I picked out details, and then as I created them, I kind of kept it chronological as I was doing it, and sort of the walk represented the thing, and basically put the A2 pieces of paper up on the wall in the foyer as I was creating them. So it was like this growing project that stretched across the wall, which was like an 8-meter wall, and I think I got to about 6.5 meters by the end, which was 60 individual sort of panels.
A2 pieces.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And is it chronological as in the way that you walk through the garden? So it's all the Harakeke and then all the next...
Yeah, it's a little bit mixed up, because as I was putting them up, I would also experiment with what looked good together. And I was playing around with different materials as well, sort of charcoal drawings and different ways of applying the paint, and getting quite loose and pencil drawings, and just seeing actually how all of those things work together. It's quite eclectic, but the gardens themselves they're kind of an eclectic mix of specimens, so it kind of represented the garden.
And were you doing some of the painting as you normally would as well in those?
Yep, just building up layers. Yeah, they would, I tried, they were all quite quick and loose. I liked that. It was really great, immediate response
quite
to
liberating.
things. Yeah, very. It was amazing, actually. I really enjoyed that side of it. So I would try and I think it averaged about one a day. But the ones that are more painterly would probably take like 2 or 3 days, and then I would do these frottage pieces, I could get a few of them done in a half day sort of stuff. So frottage is a Max Ernst term for rubbing. So it's slightly dodgy term. I think he was having a laugh.
I feel like there's another word similar that's not such a good word.
It's a very, exactly, it is. But it's kind of funny. But it's bark rubbings, or they're like brass rubbings that people do in churches, and it's basically that. You put your paper directly on the thing that you want, and you use various things to sort of push through. I actually ended up doing a lot of work with oil paint, doing like a dry brushing with a really stiff, short brush, and that created the most interesting images to me. Yeah, so it's it's basically just bark rubbing, but it's a really great way to get texture and stuff. And that's why I originally started doing it when I was at Harakeke House residency in 2018, as just a way of, I was kind of running out of time and I really wanted a way of getting some quick reference textures and stuff. So I started doing these frottages of some small sort of kauri saplings in the garden there. And I sort of started thinking, oh, actually they're quite cool. And kind of figured out how to make them look quite finished, so that they became finished pieces. So,
beautiful.
So that, Wallace, James Wallace bought a couple of those for the Wallace collection, those frottage pieces.
Brilliant. Very interesting. And is that still kind of, you're still thinking about composition and form and space with those rubbings, with the frottage, or are you actually just kind of heading away from that?
Yeah, well, there's the limitations to that process. You have to have a textured surface that isn't too textured, but is interesting enough and also flat enough to get the paper to wrap around. So there's a lot of limitations to that process. So it's a kind of, what I've figured out over time is how to make those work. So it's basically just about the texture. That's all they are, because you can't really do anything else with them unless you start chopping them up and collaging them together. But it's so that is, a lot of things that I do, you sort of you focus down on one particular thing. There's sort of each work becomes about something more specifically than the others. And those ones are purely about texture. Yeah,
which is so good.
Also, the idea that you're actually creating an image from an actual thing rather than a representation. If that makes any sense, artists who are interested in those ideas of what is representation, I kind of playing around with that a little bit.
Yeah. I can see that. And that whole idea of representational work and sort of photorealistic work, and I know that I have read that you don't really like it when people say that your work is photorealistic.
I don't think they are photorealistic, but having just spent 2 months talking to people and seeing their immediate reactions, I have to admit that they do obviously see them as photorealistic, because the amount of people that come, I thought it was a photo. Yeah. It's amazing. It's like, oh.
It is. I suppose very accurately sort of.
Well, it's using the thing, like I was saying, that using the language of photography. So if you put in unfocused stuff, and you can play around with unfocused stuff in a very abstract way, which I like. It's very loose and doesn't represent the photograph that I'm looking at very often. It's kind of like, oh, I can really play with this bit and kind of get carried away and get quite loose and start putting silly faces in it and things like that. It's kind of
and because you are actually taking, it's not just from one photograph that you're reproducing, it's sort of it's lots of different things combined.
Well, I use Photoshop to pull images together as well. So there's a lot of manipulation and stuff that goes on to create the paintings. That's right.
And that unfocused part of your paintings and some of your paintings, it's really beautiful. It's quite, it just something different.
There's a really interesting thing that happens with people's, the way that they see images. They're so used to looking at photographs and that short depth of field that they see the paintings that I do as very real because they're referencing the photos. Whereas when you look at stuff in real life, you don't notice that unfocused. Your eyes do that, but you don't, because you're flitting between things. So a lot of painters don't use that sort of depth of field and focus stuff, because if you're painting from plein air or something, then you don't see it like that.
No.
So I quite like that stuff, and And when people say, "Oh, it looks like a photo," it looks so real. It's like, well, it doesn't really. It's kind of abstract. The marks are quite loose when you get up close, and it's all like brush marks and stuff like that. But just the overall effect of when you walk back from it, and it starts to sort of blend together and make more of a photographic kind of feel, which I quite like. I love that. Oh, it's a photo, and then you get closer, and it's painting.
Yeah, that's very cool. And that residency sounds amazing. And I love the idea of you working while guests, visitors came in and they could interact with you and your process.
It's amazingly busy.
Really amazing.
Mitch, the centre manager, sent me the numbers through and sort of break it down a bit, and there were like 200,000 people walked through at the time I was there. So it's really big exposure.
That must have been quite exhausting too.
Oh, I loved it actually.
Did you? Yeah. You found it sort of energizing?
Really liked talking to people for a change.
And you still managed to get your work done?
Well, yeah, obviously. Managed to get quite a lot done. 60 A2 pieces. Yeah. I quite like to keep it as a single work, but how realistic that is, I'm not sure. I think I'll show it again. If Fernanda are keen, might try and show it again for my next show.
And putting them all together like a grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that kind of thing. Oh, well, we'll put photos of that in your blog post so people can have a look. And also, obviously, your website is an amazing place to go for people to see what you've done over the last 20 years.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
At the moment, Neal, what are you thinking about and what are you working towards?
Well, having recently completed the Botanic Garden residency, as the work that I was doing there was a pure response to the gardens, but a few things have come up in that I'm interested in following. So I've got a show booked at Fernanda in October, and I had a different idea that I wanted to do for that particular show, but now that I've done the residency, I actually would like to respond to that residency as a show, maybe re-show the work that I did out there as a piece, plus work on some works that is more like my normal exhibition gallery work that I do for places like dealer galleries. So it's kind of drawing that idea of the details and a response to the place and creating a show out of that. The idea that I had before was actually more of a response to New Zealand bush. I love walking in New Zealand in bush, and that light that comes through Nikau and all of the native trees and things that are in there. So it's an amazingly complex structure, that thing. So I was wanting to kind of respond to that in scale, which as a response to my last show at Fernanda, which was all about scale, and this creating one or three pieces in the show on a really large scale, and I wanted to take that idea and take it to the New Zealand bush and respond to the New Zealand bush in that way and create a really huge single work which was built up of panels, which is something that I do quite often. But that might have to wait for another year. So I'm going to respond to the gardens and use the idea of picking out details and building up a sort of a grid of those things, things that relate to each other and responses to things. So it's, as an artist, you're constantly sort of thinking about things in different ways. I've got maybe sort of 3 or 4 sort of avenues that I want to explore, and things that I've come back to, or things and little avenues that have gone down, and then I come back to what I've done before. And it's sort of just exploring things and sort of pushing out, trying not to be too eclectic, sort of. So you want it to all be a cohesive collection of work that relates to each other. But I do go off on tangents every now and then.
Which is kind of nice. And just having that sort of the conversations between works can be really interesting.
Yeah.
So do you actually produce prints out of your work and sell those? And if so, how do you go about that?
I have done. I've got a series of G clay prints of works that I've liked, and what I did was I kind of chose pieces that I really liked from particular periods, and worked with digital darkroom to create high quality artist prints of those pieces. I thought I was interested in the fact that I use photographs to paint from, and then taking a photograph of that painting, turning it into a print that is digitally printed, was an interesting process in itself. And I quite liked the idea of that. But they're not handmade; they are just a photograph of the print, which is a really affordable way to get one of the paintings because they're not cheap anymore. So I struggle with that. I've only done 6. One of them is sold out. So,
what do you struggle with?
Just the complexity of the fact that it's not an original artwork, but it's a photo.
It's still your art.
But and they are really nice. They are. I actually have a couple on the wall at home just because I've got them, and
they would make beautiful prints.
And they are, and the digital darkroom do an amazing job of the depth in the darks that he produces are incredible. They're great. He's a really good printer. Yeah, but it's I should really, like we've talked about before, maybe I should get into etching. And a handmade print is a different thing altogether.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. When I talk to you in 20 years' time, when we're in our 70s
series,
we can talk about your etching, which would be interesting. Okay, well that's interesting that you went there, but you've kind of decided not to continue. I mean, I do like the idea. I think that your artwork would make a beautiful print. And then also it is more accessible.
Yes, well, people. That's the point of them. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're still not sure.
No.
Fair enough. And when you have a dealer gallery, can you still sell prints on the side yourself?
They're not interested in the prints actually. So yes, I can do that. I think.
All right, Neal, it's time for the questions. Okay. The fun part.
Yes.
That everyone loves.
Yeah, I struggled.
What would you say to your younger artistic self?
Don't worry, just keep going, basically. I agonized over various points in my career that I think, am I doing the right thing? Am I going in the right place? Am I dealing with the right people? But in the end, everything that you do basically kind of helps you make decisions later, and it's all going to be all right.
Good advice. Favorite artists and why?
Oh my God, that is the hardest question you can ever ask. I've so many, and I've got no idea how to distill them down. I've got a few personal favorites. At art school, I loved the idea of being Richard Long. I wanted to be Richard Long, the British land artist and sculptor, installation creator. I love the idea that he was creating works from a journey to an object, and that's, I think, a little bit what I do in a very different way. But I love that idea. I also quite a big fan of the St Ives artists. One of my favourite places in the world is Barbara Hepworth's garden. I've been 4 times, which is not easy from New Zealand. But it's just a really beautiful place. The studio itself has been kept pretty much as it was when she was working there, and the gardens are incredible. And they've got a really large amount of New Zealand plants in there, lots of Harakeke and cabbage trees.
Really?
Yeah, they call them Torquay palms there.
Yeah.
I quite like the idea of having a show in Cornwall, actually. It'd be a really nice sort of little return, because Cornwall came here, Cornish came here, and they took the plants back there. They thrived there, and then I came back here. I'd quite like to take a whole bunch of work back there again.
Yeah.
I want to do that, but it's not easy logistically, so it'll be a while before we can get there. But that's completely off the track about. But so Barbara Hepworth and Peter Lanyon as well. I really loved his work. A bit of a soft spot for David Hockney. I love his big, colourful landscapes. bit of a contentious artist, possibly. But I mean, there's so many. There's, that last trip that we went to in the UK, we saw Hugh Locke's work, which is incredible at Tate Britain, which is a contemporary British sculptor who just have to look him up. He's amazing.
I will.
When it comes to New Zealand artists, I mentioned Gordon Walters. I love them, but I also really like Alan Maddox. I love that simple X that he just produces in so many different ways. That experimenting around with a simple idea in as many different ways as possible. I really enjoy that. Judy Miller, absolute. I'm such a fan. I've been in the same room as Judy Miller several times, and I've never had the guts to introduce myself.
Really?
I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, I'd love to meet her too. Another person who would be good on the podcast.
Yes.
We need to do some checking.
And I've got one artist that I really would like to do a shout out to, an amazing painter, Gary Curran. I don't know if you know his work, but he does sort of abstracted landscapes, but they are incredible paintings. I love his work.
Good. Well, this is a good list that we can all go away and.
But that's really
discover.
hard.
Yeah.
I mean, in London we actually came across a show of Billy Apple's work, which is in a little dealer gallery above, and you had to go up some stairs and ring a bell to get in, to get this tiny little dealer gallery space that was basically had no external light in it. So they were showing his rainbow works, which I've never really got, but in that room with all of them sort of together relating to each other, that was really special. I loved that little experience. And just because we just happened across it, oh my God, it's Billy Apple.
Yeah, how good.
So and Lisa Rehana is an incredible artist. So I think she's possibly, that work, In Pursuit of Venus, is one of the most significant works of art ever produced in New Zealand. It is an incredible work of art. And she's a really cool person. And, having lived with her for a few months in the mid-90s, just seeing the ways that how much she put into the relationships that, people would come in and she was talking art with them, and I was still not even doing my own work again after, still in shock from art school. So it's kind of...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are just so many.
Yeah. Well, that's a good collection. And as an artist, what do you feel is your biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge, if I'm going to be completely honest, is negotiating the art world to make a career out of being an artist and following your own ideas and what you want to produce as artworks and marrying those two things together. That is quite a difficult thing to achieve. And I think if you manage to do that, then you've got a career. So that's and time. I don't even have time to do anything.
I think every guest says time. Yeah.
I didn't go to art school in New Zealand. I went to art school in the UK and then had a bit of a break from doing work and then came back to it in New Zealand with a slightly different sort of skew on it. But I came back without any connections to the New Zealand. If you go to art school here, you build connections with people, like quite well-known artists are tutors, and you make those connections, and arts, and dealer galleries go to the final shows and make connections with people that they think are going to be things. So not having that made it a little bit harder. But having said that, it was a lot easier to start being an artist in New Zealand than it would have been in the UK.
Why is that?
Just because it's really hard to even get in front of a gallery. You basically need an agent to get a slot to see a dealer gallery, and then they need, it's too convoluted. To love to have that relationship with the art world over there, having come from there, and be an excuse to go back and spend time with my family and stuff like that. But it's really hard. So
I can see you doing it though. Yeah,
I want to.
You will. What drives you to make the kind of work you make?
I think having not come from a particularly arty family, what I want my work to do is work for people on different levels and work for different people in different ways. So I'm interested in work that someone who doesn't know anything about art goes, that's interesting. And I want people who know a lot about art to go, oh my God, he's referencing this and that. And this is, there's an interesting take on botanical subjects and stuff. So that's what I want. I want to appeal to a wider audience in the way that I can get some of those people to look at other artists as well. So it's sort of like I'm interested in being like a funnel or a gateway to more interesting art as well as what I do. I mean, hopefully I'm doing interesting art as well, but
you definitely are.
but I quite like that idea. That's one of the things that drives me. My daughter once said to me, "Oh, you're like the marijuana of the art world, a gateway artist."
I love it. That's so good. Brilliant. Well, on that note, we need to wrap it up, but I'd like to say thank you very, very much for being on the podcast, Neal, and I've really enjoyed meeting you and having a very long conversation, which has been lovely in this thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And, we have a few mutual friends we've discovered. So, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's beautiful spot you have here.